All right, question number 4. Kevin Lionel says sin is objective, but isn't it sometimes subjective? For example, you may be convicted of a certain activity and won't do it, but I do, or vice versa. How modesty is different around the world. You may be convicted of a certain activity and won't do it, but I do. Oh, conviction, like having a conviction. I understand your question now. So I might feel that it's, say I feel that it's wrong to drink. I know it's not actually wrong, objectively wrong to drink. Drinking is something that God gave us to be enjoyed and to thank him for, right? But doesn't that make it subjective that I subjectively say, for me, drinking is wrong? No, because it's okay. You could say it's subjective in the sense that it's applying differently to different people in different situations, but it's the same objective rule, because the rule is drinking inherently is not wrong if you can do it with gratefulness and thankfulness to God, and in a way that it does not put you in bondage and it's not unhealthy and harmful for you, and does not lead others into troubles, like causing your brother to fall, that kind of thing. But this rule applies to me, and I'm like, but I can't do it in thanks to God. I have a conviction that maybe is not binding on every other people, but the objective rule is, don't violate my own convictions. My convictions can make my life stricter, and that's okay. I can be honoring God by not partaking, because that's my situation. So there are objective rules, I think, that are applying to convictions, and those rules are objective. It's kind of like saying, when the light's red, you stop. When it's green, you go. And here's on the issue of drinking, where we all drive up to the light, and for some of us it's green, and for some of us it's red. But the rule is applying the same way. I hope that helps to some extent. You also asked the following, and how modesty is different around the world. I think here we have, modesty is different around the world. That's true. But we're talking about pop culture version of modesty. Let me say this. God has an understanding of modesty for men and women. And that is our objective rule for everyone. Now, there are other objective rules for Christians, which is not stumbling others, not having the appearance of evil, and things like that, that might cause us to yield and become even more modest than God would require naturally, because of the environment we're in, the people we're witnessing to, those we're sharing with, because of the conscience of others. And so it's always in the Christian attitude that I will willingly take on extra restrictions on my life, even though I have those liberties, as an act of love towards others. That's how I would view the modesty thing. Most or many of our cultures, they're violating certainly God's solid rules on modesty. Even if they're not violating, this is Southern California, right? We have cultural rules of modesty that are definitely lower than God's. Like, this seems very obvious to me. Okay, you go to a beach and you see a bunch of people with almost no clothes on. It seems obvious to me that this is not the modesty that Christians are called to. And there's plenty in my culture who will disagree. What I'm suggesting is, here I think culture's wrong, violating the objective rule of God. Okay, so I think that, I think bikinis are obviously immodest. How is this controversial? I don't know how this is controversial at all for Christians. I think the bikinis are obviously, doesn't mean that women wearing bikinis are intentionally trying to stumble somebody. I think many of them are just completely have no conviction about it. Here's a case where conviction is too slight. Conviction doesn't rise to the level of what is actually our calling. It's okay if your conviction rises higher than your calling, but it's not okay if it rises lower. And this is, I think, the case because our culture is immodest, rather than having rules of modesty we should pay attention to. But I think that there's still objective rules from God on these issues. I don't think these are subjective. I think there's, even underneath the sort of different treatments of things, whether you call someone sir or by their Mr. or Mrs. or first name, that these can zoom out and see more objective policies, moral rules that are guiding and directing us in the different situations we're in.